All right, now we're in the book of John, and starting in John chapter 1, questions 5 and 6 are focused on this chapter. And the question number 5 says, for each of Jesus' disciples mentioned in this chapter, list how they came to be a disciple according to the chapter. This section is really in the end of the chapter. It starts in verse 35 of chapter 1. And verse 35 says, the next day John, that's John the Baptist, was there again with two of his disciples. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, look, the Lamb of God. When the two disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus. And these two disciples then become disciples of Jesus. So the way that these two come to Jesus or become disciples of Jesus was through the testimony of a preacher, John the Baptist, an evangelist, we could say. And so that's the way that they come to Jesus. The next one is in verse 40. It says, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of those two that we just mentioned who heard John, and he followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother, Simon, that's Simon Peter, and tell him, we have found the Messiah. And then, of course, Peter comes and becomes a disciple of Jesus. So here we have Simon coming to Christ by the testimony of his brother, a relative, Andrew, brings him to Christ. So that's the second. The third is in verse 43. The next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee, finding Philip. Now, finding Philip, it says, he said to him, follow me. So Philip comes to Jesus by a direct call from Jesus himself. There are no other humans involved in the call of Philip. Jesus directly finds Philip. Jesus directly calls him, and he follows him. And then lastly, in verse 45, it says, Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. So then Philip finds Nathanael, which we can assume was a friend of his, and he brings him to Jesus. So here we have 4 instances of individuals coming to Jesus. The first came by an evangelist or a preacher. The second comes by a relative, by his brother, that's Peter. The third comes just by Jesus directly calling him or revealing himself to him. And the fourth comes by the testimony of a friend. I think this actually gives a very broad example of the many different ways that all of us come to Jesus. And I want to highlight that this didn't make any of the disciples better or lesser because of how they came to Jesus. Sometimes people feel that because I came to Jesus from a relative, because my parents took me to church as a child, my testimony is not as strong as the people who come to Jesus by just being revealed. They were in drugs or they were in some very difficult lifestyle, and Jesus revealed himself to them in a dream or through some other means directly, and they came to Jesus. No, Philip is not any better than Simon Peter. In fact, Simon Peter was one of the foremost apostles, but he came to Jesus through the testimony of a relative. A brother brought him to Jesus. However we heard the testimony of Jesus, however we came to Jesus, it's the point of it is that we came to Jesus, and that's no lesser, no better because of how we came. So hopefully that can encourage someone. And also the other side of this is that we need to be seeking to bring people to Jesus through any means. We need to be seeking to bring our relatives to Jesus, our friends to Jesus. We need to be seeking to bring people even to hear evangelists, or if we ourselves have been called to preaching, then we can also bring people to Jesus through that means. But again, no matter what way we come to Jesus, the important point is that we came to him.